do it. Yes, let's go. All right. All right.
Hey, how you doing?
How's it going?
It's good. It's good. Glad
Yeah?
to be here.
Yeah, this is wow, it's good. It's good. I'm glad we did this. And let's just start, by talking a little bit about ourselves and what brought us here.
Definitely. Well, ladies first.
So first, I am a DJ producer. I have been working in music for I think maybe like 3 years solid, and producing for about a year and a half. But yeah, music has definitely been the DNA of my being. And I work in visuals, so definitely being at the crossroads between visual storytelling and musical heritage. And that's why I feel Kraftwerk is so important in the music that I play, the music that inspires me. And we thought about coming together and celebrating this band and sort of like dissecting, first of all, why it is so important for us as music makers, but also the legacy that they left behind. So yeah, that's sort of why I'm here.
Okay. And what do you go by? What's your DJ name that you go by?
So I'm Lola, and people know me as Lola Villa, which is my first and last name. And that's it. As
That's the beginning.
it's the beginning. It's the beginning. It's the beginning. And if people are connecting through our Facebook and Twitch, you probably know us or have seen us. And this is definitely not like the general like sound that I would play as a DJ, but there is so much from it that influences my work that I feel that it's crucial for me to celebrate that and to talk about it. Okay. So yeah, that's in a nutshell,
In a nutshell.
who I am and what brought me here. Tim, how about you?
So I'm Adrian Loving. I'm a DJ and a curator and work in the arts. Also a music scholar. Really a big fan of Kraftwerk since the first record I got back in when I was a kid. And we're here to sort of really talk about the influence and legacy of Kraftwerk in dance music, but also as it applies to us as DJs. I've been working and producing music fairly recently, but a DJ for more than 20 years, and work in Washington, D.C. So this is going to be glowing out global. So all of our friends across the nation and in Europe and other places, in the Americas and so on and so forth, hello. And we know that you're fans of Kraftwerk as well. And, considering Florian Schneider passed away and, a lot of, musical influences that they have done have filtered into music that we play, such as electro, hip hop, house, techno. We wanted to really celebrate that music and also sort of talk about some of our favorite influences and songs, and just sort of in a very casual way kind of go through the music and play things we like. And so we also want to thank Showtime for hosting us. We're at their lovely studios in
100%.
Maryland, and they are putting their best tech and skills to make us look great.
Yes, 100%. So shout out to everyone here who's making this possible for us. And yeah, let's give it a go. Let's take it from here.
Okay, so like where should we start? Kraftwerk's legacy and music is so deep and dynamic and influential. And for those people who don't know who Kraftwerk is, let's just say you don't. Kraftwerk is a German electronic music group that came about in the late 60s, early 70s, and started producing music using synthesizers with classical influence. They were very much pioneers in developing a new type of sound, which became dance music.
And literally, by being pioneers, by making their own instruments, they decided to take rock music and dismantle it and start creating like their own sounds by creating their own instruments, right? Which is sort of like the backbone of like what made them so will sound so differently, look so differently, and eventually build, yeah, the backbone of like what modern electronic music is today, right?
Yeah, the very important legacy. And being German and having the history of electronic music within other producers, Kraftwerk was really able to create something that has lasted till today. I mean, some of the first shows that I went to, I've seen Kraftwerk maybe perform 3 times. I recently saw them do a 3D concert. And then I saw them a couple years in Philadelphia where they did a sort of tribute to 3 of their famous albums, Trans Europe Express, Computer World, and was it Autobahn? It might have been one of the other ones. And it was just amazing how they were able to come together with their visuals. And you have 4 older gentlemen, probably in their early 60s, I would imagine, who have reinvented themselves and became a new performance outfit, which I always thought was kind of interesting. What do you think?
Absolutely. I remember I've seen them once, only 10 years ago in Buenos Aires. And I remember just starting in my 20s and seeing indeed like just old dudes behind like their little stations, and with this like sick visual experience, you couldn't tell where they were they close to the the screen, or were they like closer to the audience. You couldn't really tell because of the visual, the game with lines that they were playing with. You didn't know if it was like 2D, it was 3D, what were they doing behind like their little stations. It was so outlandish in that way, and this is like sort of like the backbone of their personification of the man machine. And at the beginning it was so tough for me to sort of like understand what was going on, but then I just like let myself go into the repetition of the repetition of the repetition, which is something very common in their music. And we'll come to that later, but like how that resembles this idea of like African drums, of like, this repetition of repetition, which we can hear in like, techno and house, and how even if it's like machine made, or like the soul of the machine speaking, it has this soul of the repetition, and which is like this trance, right? So I remember just being in this trance, and I was like, what are these guys doing? This is absolutely absurd. And then by hearing them and seeing them, then I was like, whoa, there's just so much music that I could tell that came from that. Just starting from like Daft Punk and, David Bowie, and we'll go through like all these artists. I was like, oh my God, it like they don't actually really care about how they look. It's not about how they look. It's more about what they represent and what they're doing. And they based indeed, like as Germans from the 60s, they're like, okay, let's let go of the rock, and let's go of like the Led Zeppelin look, and let's just become this man machine and play this role, right? So yeah, like seeing them live was such a revelation for me. I hadn't really listened to them that much, but it was just seeing them and seeing this like show that was really like the sparkle of like, okay, this is dope, and this is very different than what I've seen in the past. I really need to look into this.
I mean, I think what's interesting for me is, like you said, Kraftwerk really taps into this sort of soul in the machine, and they've been able to discover the binary code that makes all this work. But I think for me, when I was a kid, if you're a kid growing up in the 70s and 80s, and you experienced Kraftwerk closer to their time of sort of putting out the first couple albums, they tap into the nerd in you. There's something about Kraftwerk that has always been alluring to people who are interested in technology, interested in music, and have a sort of a nerd sensibility. When you see them pushing buttons and, plugging synthesizer patches in and all these things that you're curious about and you wonder about, it taps into that spirit. The first time I got a Kraftwerk record, I was over at my friend Daryl's basement. We were like 10 or 11 or something. But we bought all these records. We had hip-hop records. We had electro records, early electro records. We had go-go. We had all this stuff. And then Kraftwerk was in that playlist we put the record on, and we just let it play.
And you would play Kraftwerk next to like hip hop or what kind of music?
Oh, absolutely. It was something about Trans Europe Express was the first really big hit, and so that's where we would just sit and like listen to it, and that's when you really listened. Before we danced, we listened, and that's where you start to align your heartbeat with the rhythms of it, you know. And I think with good music, like house music and techno music and even like Afrobeat, like you listen to Fela, it's just this long repetition of sound, you know, and you tune into it. It takes you to the spiritual level, basically.
100%. Which is what happens on the dance floor with electronic, like, yeah, exactly what you were saying, house, techno.
Yeah.
There is this repetitive thing that takes you somewhere.
So speaking of Trans Europe Express, let's start there. Let's just go ahead and
Let's
tackle
go.
the
Let's
elephant
go.
and go on
Okay.
in.
You wanna go there?
So
Let's go.
Trans Europe Express is the seminal record in the most long-lasting Kraftwerk record, but not the only record.
Is this after Autobahn? I think Autobahn came first.
Okay, well, as the album,
Yeah.
right? But in terms of the song that really made it big and crossed over to a mainstream audience, it was Trans Europe Express, and all the children of Trans Europe Express is what created hip hop, parts of electro, and all these other
Descendants.
forms. So you've got Africa Bambaataa, you've got what else? What are some of the other songs that you can remember? Everyone sampled Trans. A lot of people sampled Trans Europe Express, but the synths, John Roby, Arthur Baker, that produced Planet Rock, also were inspired by the synths. Even being from DC, I had to go back to Trouble Funk Express, which was a go-go record that was a sort of remake of Trans Europe Express. Masters at Work did trance. I mean, there's been all these sort of hybrids and inspirations and offshoots of the Express.
Right.
But what does Trans Europe Express really mean? Like, what is the sound of the song? What is the feeling of the song? What is the spirit of the song?
I think what is so beautiful about their work, and it came about in Trans Europe Express, is this notion of speed, without having to make the track faster, like the beat faster. But it's this notion that by creating a sound, by introducing sound design, you could create this idea of a train moving faster and faster and faster, like this machine working faster and working deeper, right? And how you could create that idea of like progression in music without having to change your chord progression, without having to change the speed, without having to change the tempo. And that was so revolutionary for me. I mean, it started with Autobahn, but it definitely came together in Trans Europe Express, and that is definitely a core value or mechanism in dance music. You need to keep the whoever is listening, the listener, engaged by making them aware that there's something coming and that you're going somewhere. You're going to the drop. You're going to the, we're getting somewhere. And that is what this idea of the train and the sound and the
Mechanics, yeah.
the mechanics of it that allowed you to think and close your eyes and think, we are moving, we are going somewhere. And that is for me sort of like the main element of why that album and that track is just so revolutionary.
Yeah. I'm going to play a sample.
Yes.
So as casual as this conversation is, as we talk about it, we're going to sort of play some samples as well too.
Just to show you what we mean by speed.
Right. Give you the moment.
Right.
Let's see. And I also think that there's something really interesting, as you talk about this, there's something really interesting about the train, this idea of illustrating the mechanical, illustrating the sort of industry.
I mean, it's like it's the Ruhr area of Germany, right? It's like this, is this very German, like anti-rock and machine, like, Russian constructivism, Russian machinery, like notion of like there is so much potential in the machine, in the man machine. Let's translate that into music.
It is.
There's a train. There's a train. We're going somewhere.
And this one's called Metal on Metal, which is a sort of the part 2 of Trans Europe Express, which you can really hear that sort of banging, clanging metal, thing.
And it's just repetition after repetition. And then eventually there's going to be a melody that is going to be just floating on top of it, And they were masters in melody, so it's like repetition.
So that's Metal on Metal, and then I'll give you a little bit of Trans Europe Express proper.
Because here's we're going to take off.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, this is the train departing. Exactly. Look at this. This is Hamburg to Berlin.
And who's actually been on the Trans Europe Express?
I have.
Does it still exist?
There's a Eurostar.
Which is the Trans Europe Express?
It's like the modern version of it.
And this is the sort of chords that bring you to the dance floor. You go running to the dance floor. It's like, Trans Europe Express is on, like, let's go. Like, this was a call to...
yeah, absolutely.
Was a call to the moment.
This is the, oh my God, I know this song. I need to go dancing right now. Absolutely.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, too, the mythology of the train in African American culture too is very important, because here you have the use of the train as this mechanism for freedom. Escaped slaves, people who were enslaved tried to get on the train and just go across country, go up
like
north.
Freedom, like this. It
was a notion of freedom.
Yeah.
A lot of famous artists such as Romare Bearden, used to depict the train in his work a lot. So in films and writing and visual art, the train has always had a very important place in African American culture. And I think that's also one of the reasons that this song is very relatable to like the black dance floor in some way, other than just the music itself being a new vision of electronic,
And a new vision of music as a whole. Just an entire new language that, black musicians could use to speak, without having a white promoter tell you what to play as a jazz musician. Like really recreating your own language.
Exactly. And so you hear this, you hear these chords also in Planet Rock, which we'll get into in a little bit. So this next track I want to play is I gotta give a nod to the Locals, Trouble Funk Express, because this was also a record that I got and I was playing it next to Planet Rock, and we were like, well, what's the difference, and why did they decide how does a go-go band decide that Trans Europe Express is going to be one of the next remakes that they do? And so
how old is this track?
Oh God, Trouble Funk Express came out in...
Is this like 80 something?
Yeah, 85, 86, something like that.
Yeah. You hear like this melody, this like outlandish melody, repetition.
And then the vocoder comes in.
Fucking dope.
It's right there, yeah.
So good.
So there's that, and then later you have. Should we play a little Planet Rock just to give them a little taste of Planet Rock?
I love Planet Rock.
Okay. This is a slept-on song though, Trouble Funk Express though. I think it kind of missed a lot of people's crates. Okay, let me see.
Party people, can yo get funky? Suicide and folks, can yo get funky?
The artwork is also so lit.
Yo get funky? Yeah, just hit me. Just taste the funk.
It's so good. It's fascinating to me how funky like a band like Kraftwerk can become. Which is where does this,
Well, it's beautiful how the producers, Africa Bambaataa, Arthur Baker, Roby, like how they were able to really hear Trans Europe Express and process Kraftwerk and really create their own invention of it, but pull from the sonic elements.
Yeah.
Like, to you, what are some of the sonic elements that scream Kraftwerk in Planet Rock?
Well, I mean, the synths, like very, very Kraftwerk-ish, and the beat.
The 808, of course.
The 808.
And this was one of the first songs that really was a huge hit with the 808.
Right.
And this gave birth to electro, which would become electro. And also was just squarely embedded in the hip hop language and really pushed hip hop forward. It really helped to push hip hop forward. So
in what sense?
It pushed the tempo because hip hop was a little bit slower. Well, you had disco rap in the late 70s, early 80s, but then Planet Rock is at 120, something like that. So it's a faster movement on the dance floor. It connects with freestyle. It connects with some of the early electro rap records. So Kraftwerk opened Planet Rock opened the door for faster movement in hip hop, and it also opened up different sounds in it as well too. Let's play another one. How about Numbers? You want to go for Numbers?
Yes.
All right. Oh, actually, let's do Moscow Disco. This is another song by Telex. A song by Telex. Carl Craig did a remix of this called Moscow Disco. Same feeling, same spirit.
Look at that train.
Yeah.
Did you have like the choo-choo?
I mean,
choo-choo vibes.
we were born into this as kids. Choo-choo train. This is how we learned.
100%. Yeah, I've got your vocoder. Yeah. That bass is so Kraftwerk-ish. Solid, yeah.
It's that driving, pulsating train track. And this for a lot of people is where, I guess, techno starts. Is where some people believe techno starts. And I think this is the early sound,
Yeah. I'll play a techno.
Yeah, and
a little bit.
these songs like this really sort of influenced early Detroit techno, early house. I mean, DJs like Ken Collier and Larry Levan and Frankie Knuckles and Ron Hardy. I mean, they were playing these records and they were looping and editing and making their own versions that morphed the sound. So we'll get into Numbers. I used to break dance to Numbers. It's one of my favorites.
I want to see that.
And this song is more computery, so Numbers is from Computer World. It's really sound art. It's sound art.
They played in Detroit, I don't know when exactly, I think early 80s. And they never considered themselves. I think it was the first time that they would play in Detroit. They never considered themselves a band for black people. And when they saw the audience, it was mostly black, and they were like
Amazed.
They were amazed.
Yeah.
And I think that's when someone was like, "This is techno music." You know, this is techno, like, you know.
Well, I think other groups such as like Liquid were also amazed at how black their following was. You
Yeah.
know, they're playing this really noisy pots and pans experimental kind of music, and like the fans are black. I mean, it's interesting what gets absorbed and adopted into DJ culture.
Right.
You know, and I think Numbers is one of these songs that's like it's so tight and technological, and it uses a great balance of the vocals and the sound together, and it's punchy. You know, listen to that punch. This is where the funk comes in. This is where the funk comes in.
100%.
Talk about the funk of Kraftwerk. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's how aggressive their drums are. They're just aggressive. They're just in a good way, right? They're just like, I'm here to just, you know, I'm gonna break something. I've got just so much energy, and I'm gonna break it. What is just fascinating to me is how eventually, like the way that they would like present themselves to the world, you would never imagine them to be funky, but there was something about the punchiness of the drums that makes you sort of like be like you know, like
And I think the reverbs and the echoes, and it really sonically fills the space up really well. If you hear Kraftwerk on a real club system, not like a crappy system, like hear them properly, like the one we have here at Showtime, it's such a full round experience.
Right.
It gets you here,
Right.
it gets you here, and it gets you down below.
which is
Yeah, they put the booty in the bass. Okay, let's go to another one. Do you have a pick, or should I just keep it going?
Shall I go?
Well, I mean, I'm just playing what's here. I can keep it for flowing. And
Yeah,
then-
just keep it
Okay.
going.
All right. Tour de France.
Yes.
Let's go to Tour de France. Okay.
I think I've never heard that many covers. Yeah, I think that Tour de France is one of the tracks that people have covered the most.
Tour de France, I think, really is the electro boogie blueprint. I mean, Arabian Prince. Who else? Egyptian Lover. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all right here in Tour de France.
The melody, though, is just amazing.
Do you imagine yourself riding on a bike through Europe with this song on? Wind blowing in your hair?
Blowing my golden hair.
It's a happy song.
Yes, for
It's
sure.
a beautiful, free, and
Oh,
happy song.
it's a French summer song. It's a summer in France.
Côte d'Azur et Saint-Tropez, Tour de France, Seul et les Pyrénées, Tour de France.
And the French lyrics. Why French lyrics?
No, I mean,
It's Tour de
they're,
France.
no. These are German with a German accent, just saying things in French.
It
It's
sounds
like
French to me.
words.
It sounds
Well,
French.
Okay, cool.
But
It adds.
it's English,
adds.
but it's, yeah.
It
Okay.
makes it less robotic. It makes it a little bit more romantic, right?
There you go, the romance.
Yeah, you bring a little bit of romance in there.
Okay. So we got the sort of electro boogie on lock with I break dance to this song. Okay. Now let's talk about the man machine concept. Okay, let's get into that one.
Okay, I like that.
So this is the Robots by Kraftwerk on Man Machine.
I mean, what I like about
What are we doing here?
No, I feel that this is when they really impersonated this idea of like, it's not about us as people playing music, it's about this impersonation of machines and how they would like, you couldn't tell if they were like real people, right? The way, like the makeup that they would use, the way that they would dress. you couldn't really tell if they were real people or not. And I feel that they wanted to take away from this like like they didn't want to be stars. They wanted the work to speak for themselves, and that's, you can see that in the way they perform. You can see that in the pictures that that they get taken, and their music spoke for them, and they wanted to, like we see here, they wanted to be the personification of a machine, right? In like their movement. And what I love about that is that it plays into this, we talked about this like androgynous being, like am I a man or a woman? Am I wearing makeup or not? And in a moment in music when you had like rock bands and you had like very, very female artists coming up with this, like, I don't know if, like, am I a man? Am I a woman? Am I a little bit of both? Am I making like robotic music? Am I a person? What are we gonna do with all these machines? Are we like replacing people? Like people are just
there
so
was a social
anxious.
message, and the
Yes,
subtext
there's a
was very
social,
social,
yeah, exactly. And there's so much about society that if you do not look like a white cisgender man, you're gonna look for alternatives. And I feel that in the way that they behaved, in the way that they put themselves out there, they were the anti-status quo of the white cisgender male.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really well said. The subtext of the concept album of Man Machine is the sort of like a social commentary on artifice and
Right.
plasticity. And so
Right.
they were able to sacrifice themselves as humans and become these robots making robot music, but still the music always reinforced humanity
100%.
and reinforced the beauty of creativity.
Right.
Some of their contemporaries also you had Devo, you had Yellow Magic Orchestra, you had these other artists that were playing around with their image. Gary Newman, Two-Way Army, like they also adopted this sort of white makeup, a little
David
androgyny.
Bowie.
David Bowie, black lips, red, black, and white. That sort of Bauhaus color scheme. Very German, but very modular and very designed. And I think the product of Man Machine speaks to that still today.
100%. I mean, Daft Punk, or there's just so many artists that impersonate that idea.
That idea, yeah, it's a fantastic idea. I think that still lives and is still very relevant.
There's something that I love also about that is that they didn't take themselves too seriously, and that really made people anxious.
Yeah.
They're like, what are you doing?
Right. There was a little humor. There was a little tongue-in-cheek and wink nod underneath all of it. I think. It's just interesting that these very button-up, white German guys, still could get down.
Yeah. Yes.
Also, wanted to talk about the sort of classical nature of some of this music is too. Like Europe Endless, I think they were classically trained and were working on music that for the time electronics were really just coming online with the Bach and the classical meets Moog compilations. One of my favorite artists is producers is Wendy Carlos, who did the Tron soundtrack.
We love her.
Yeah, and
I think she's like the first trans electronic music producer. And bless her soul. She was, as a female electronic music producer, I look up, like, I have a hard time finding women producers, and just finding out about, her and her, like, the soundtrack of Tron is outlandish.
This is Tron to me. This screams Tron. Which came out in 1982, one of my favorite childhood films. And this sound gave birth to synthwave as well, too. Mm-hmm. And so people who are producing synthwave with the graphics and the lasers and all the sort of neon touches has a lot to thank to Kraftwerk in gaming, video gaming, soundtracks for video
Oh,
gaming.
100%,
And art
100%.
is right here, is all right here.
Yeah. Soundtracks.
Soundtracks, absolutely.
And this is, I hear disco.
You hear Giorgio Moroder.
I hear 100%. I hear Donna Summer just coming right underneath.
Right. And you know, the Kraftwerk's contemporaries who were making dance music, I mean, you had the Italo disco movement, and you also had Giorgio Moroder
Yep.
and these other producers working with a similar idea.
Right. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. Let's see, we'll do one more.
And I mean, again, putting this into context, we're coming from a Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, rock and roll, the Beach Boys kind of era, and all of a sudden you had 4 guys playing weird instruments and then just playing this type of outlandish music coming from like computers. And people are like, what is this and why are my hips shaking?
Right.
You know?
And for those of you just joining us, we are doing a tribute to Kraftwerk. This is Lola, and I'm Adrian, and we are talking about Kraftwerk's enduring legacy. We're at Showtime Studios in Maryland, and we're just kind of having fun, DJ to DJ, talking about this great music. I'm gonna play one more. I want to go into the robots.
Okay.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's really a headphone experience too. Like
Oh,
putting this
100%.
on you. It's
This
like-
is music to test your headphones
People
with.
did a lot of drugs to this music
Oh.
too. I think. I mean,
People still do a lot of
People-
drugs with it. Yes.
yeah.
Also, this sound system is just.
Oh, sound system is proper, man.
Yeah. And then you hear that synth coming, and it grows, right? This idea of sound growing. It's just so good.
I think it's also one of the few music videos that came out of their work too, or in the this early album. There's the robots and models too.
We're charging our battery, and now we're full of energy. We are the robots.
All right, cool. Well, let
Switch
me-
it off and let
Yeah.
Miss Lola guide us through some more musical experiences.
Robots.
Yeah, this is legit. Let me see. I want to talk a little bit, or like I want to mention just a few tracks that really speak to me, and where I'm like, yo, this is definitely Kraftwerk. Like the DNA sits definitely in it. And then, well, first of all, I mean, one of my heroes, Bowie, who, you know, loved Kraftwerk. This is 77, I believe. And again, this is an homage to Kraftwerk. It's called Schneider, from like Florian Schneider. Again, this like speed, and it's about to like take off, right? Like this idea of like I'm going somewhere, and like let me take you with me. There's just so much energy building up, take off, you know, that I love. I mean, 77, right? So this is still very rock and roll-ish, but this is like breaking the rules of rock and roll, you know?
And it was also like a big hit at like the Blitz Club. Like they had Bowie Night in the UK, and so this was like a famous song that like Rusty Egan and those guys would play at the Blitz. And did you ever see Wir Kinder Bahnhof Zoo, the film about Christiane F?
Yes.
So this song was featured on the soundtrack of Christiane F. And it's all about the sort of kids the girl who she became a prostitute, but there was the drug scene of the outcast kids that were coming through the train station. And it's an interesting song that kind of marries. That's the first time I had heard it in context with the film. So it always makes me sort of think about that.
Excellent. Yeah, we played Planet Rock. Cybertron.
I didn't play Clear, but you can.
Yeah. So
we could talk a little bit about Detroit techno too.
Yes, I think that
let's talk about Detroit.
Segue into Detroit techno.
Yeah.
And how I'm gonna play this song, and we're gonna just
2, 3,
understand
4.
like the connection between what Kraftwerk was doing and then what was going on in Detroit, and why Kraftwerk had this like huge black following in Detroit, and what happened is this. Again, melody, repetition, aggressive.
Programming.
Yeah.
Knowing how to program your instruments.
This was like
And still funky.
so funky.
And I think it's important to really re-emphasize like the roots of this music. I mean, I think a lot of people still believe that techno started in Europe. I mean, there's people who think, oh, it started yesterday in Berlin or 10 years ago. And it's like, come on, no. This stuff's been going on for a long time. And, it's kids with drum machines who are young who wanted to make their own music. And Detroit and Chicago is where it started. Let's make no mistake about it. However, I will say that, and this is my opinion, just my opinion and research, those DJs that were playing the music prior to, the early 80s and 90s, your Ken Colliers, your Electrifying Mojos, who did a radio program in Detroit, even Nat Morris's The Scene, where they would play this music on television, and you'd hear it on the radio. Those were the songs and sounds from Kraftwerk and Italo Disco and other independent producers that were creating this idea of techno, speeding up these sounds, these electronic patterns, and making it.
And I mean, creating a new language, right? Like, so using samples, using the drum machine to create an entire new language in music, right? And yeah, absolutely. Like, don't get me wrong, like, techno started in Detroit and house started in Chicago, and then all these like badass producers went to Germany, and it's that like full circle, right?
Yeah. I was having a talk with Alton Miller, a Detroit DJ producer, who was telling me that he used to go to the Music Box in Chicago, and Ron Hardy would play a lot of these records, but speed them up and loop just certain parts. And so by doing that, they were like, oh, wow, this is some new stuff. And it imprints this idea of like, let me go back and try to replicate that or be influenced by it. And I think that's also how early techno kind of found its way as well, too, from these producers. Now, as it travels overseas and these DJs and artists are playing, Kevin Saunderson, Juan Atkins, Derek May, God, who else? All the Alton. There's so many great Detroit producers. Moody Man, Theo Parrish. They all carry the legacy of this music with them and speak it through their own language. And then that's also then that gives the influence of new producers.
Right.
Your Motor City Drum Ensembles. And,
right.
All these other people who are making techno and house and electronic dance. You got to be responsible of tracing the lineage. Is what I'm saying.
100%. I mean, as a non-black artist and producer, a lot of my music is influenced by black music, and a lot of the music that I've been producing and that I play is black, you know, and definitely like part of the, you know, part of the privilege of being able to play this music is by also playing homage and attributing.
Yeah.
You know, where is this coming from? Like, how do people get there? Can we go back to that source? Can we talk about it? Can we celebrate it? Can we give back to the community? You know, considering like where like the warehouse notion of the warehouse comes from, right? Like where like people that were not the cis while male had to express themselves and go to a place where they could be freaks, you know, they could be the other. So 100%. So let's.
Yeah. What else do we have here?
I have.
What are some of the other influences that you are really inspired by that Kraftwerk?
I have this hip hop. Obviously, Jay Dilla is one of my favorite hip hop producers, and I have this track, which, you know, this is way later on. This is to like 90 something. But this is like a 3-minute track, and it's only this. It's only this like repetition of repetition.
That's all it needs. Dilla was just, he knew what to do.
Just he could play it in a way that it was a few samples, but he put them in such a way that it could last for 3 minutes, and you would still be engaged. It was just, you know. It's obviously way more refined drums.
Yeah.
Softer, like a bit more, you know, tamed in that way. But and the synths, the melody at the back is just sort of like just hanging, not too aggressive, but it's just like this, you know.
It's really the train coming into the station, like, you know, when the train slows down when you're pulling into the station.
Yeah, it's just like a little pit stop.
Get ready, y'all. We're coming into Berlin. Like, slow down and.
But you're still grooving.
Oh yeah.
You're still grooving.
It's a groove. It's totally
a groove, right? And if you see the artwork, it looks like if you open up a computer and you have like all these like little lines. I don't know how to call them, like connectors. You know, like little.
Oh, the diagram.
Yeah, that's how the artwork looks. So for those at home, Dillatronic.
It's probably on the loop here. Yeah.
Dillatronic. The track is Dillatronic 16, and this is Jay Dilla. Hip hop, like just solid hip hop, but we can definitely hear everything that you've put, and yeah. So I've got that. Which, I mean, I feel again that hip hop was again this like new language of chopping and recreating.
Okay.
You know, speaking this language of chopping samples and recreating.
We also put some other images on the loop too. Is this the full loop? Because there's some jazz and other images on there. Just see if that's the one. Because we had the I know I put way more on there.
So I have that one. Definitely inspired by that one. Egypt, we talked about. Just, yeah. Let me just.
You have Egypt, right?
Yeah, here. I'm not sure what year this is. I have it in my notes, but I think it's 80 something. The Egyptian Lover.
I mean, this definitely opens up the door to a discussion on Afrofuturism as well, too.
Yes.
You know, you have Egypt Lover, you have Arabian Prince, you have Cybotron, you have this sort of idea of futurism from a Detroit perspective.
Right.
That, you know, where you had Planet Rock and Africa Bambaataa sort of opening the door to this idea of the other, the beyond. These guys were also doing it with their music.
A bit. So just like But yeah, so it's this idea of like your reality as an African American person so absurd in America that with your art you're creating a surreality, like reality, an alternative, a future for yourself that you can in your own terms.
Yeah. And why was it important to create that future? Like, what was the escape? Why was this music necessary during this time? Like, what was happening in Detroit or had happened that made it necessary for this?
Am I playing it?
And we're here to rock. Rhymes like ours could never be stopped. See, it's three of us, and I know we're fresh. Party rockers, non-stoppers, and our names are deaf. See, the J is for just, the other for jamming. The F is for fresh, A-N-D, deaf. Behind the turntables is DJ Train. Mixing and scratching is the name of the game. Now here's a little something about nosy people.
It's not real hard, it's plain and simple,
Baby
baby.
D. Supersonic.
Damn!
Supersonic.
808.
Supersonic, motivating rhymes are creating. And everybody knows that
JJ
JJ
Fast.
is devastating. We know you like us, girl, so you better get sterile. Cause we are the home chicks that are
Rocking your world. Supersonic. Supersonic.
So
Yeah, okay.
I had a chance to talk to
When people start to listen,
one of the
especially big
founders of Supersonic, and it was an interesting conversation about working with Dr. Dre and Arabian Prince. And you know, during that time, a lot of the music that was in dance music in LA was all electro. I mean, it was like break dance music, it was electro, it was a lot of fast tempo music like this. And you know, they were like, well, we want to make a record too. You know, let's do something. And I like the idea that they were able to make just like a party record. You know, it didn't have to be serious rap. It didn't have to like be dissing anybody. Although Supersonic is a diss, basically. That's what Supersonic means, being nosy. But that they were able to take these same elements that were being produced in Egyptian Lover and all these other songs, but still give it a different context, give it a different spin.
It sounds this way. Hit it.
And that 808.
So good.
When this
It's
song
like
drops,
the fakest
I'm sure
cowbell.
so many people have played Supersonic and dropped it at the right time, and it just blew. Another song like this would be Bombs Over Baghdad by
Yes.
Outkast. Same spirit. You know,
This is the moment when like the dance floor opens up and then someone just like comes in and like does this like sick dance in the middle and people are like, yo.
or bust a whack move, one of the two. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. I have now that we're talking sort of like slightly different types of music, I surprised you with this one. Time Goes On.
Yeah, hit us with that again.
You know, like this is definitely like my hidden weapon that people definitely did not see coming. And this is En Vogue, which is like this like for African American women, Black women, just being very fun and romantic. This is in the 80s. But then there's this one song and has nothing. I think there's a visual of the album cover, and it has nothing to do with this song because it's not robotic. It's not meant to be. But then you hear this and you're like, damn, what were they thinking?
And this is the 30th anniversary of En Vogue's album, the first album.
April 3rd, 1990.
Yeah.
This is when this album came out. Yeah,
It's like
let's
track
just hear
12
it.
or track 13 or something.
Tick tick, talk talk.
It's so dope.
Talk talk. Tick tick, talk talk. Tick tick, talk talk. Tick tick.
I want to get up and dance to this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to play this. I forgot about it.
And this piano, it makes it it elevates everything.
Tick tick, talk. Tick tick, tick tick.
You might be able to see them.
Yeah, it'll come up in.
It'll come up. It's just like super poppy, group.
But it was the less pop of the stuff on their album. I mean, they had
100%.
Hold On, they had all these.
No.
big
Their
hits.
music was super poppy.
And this came out the same time as the huge mega London, UK, Soul to Soul.
Ah, yeah.
I mean, Soul to Soul ruled the airwaves, so it's quite possible that
Took
the
over.
song did not make it.
Yeah. Oh no. Oh no. This is me just digging. This is me looking for the song and finding the song found me. It wasn't just screaming for attention. No, but
Struck gold, kid. Like this is a crate dig. Give me 5 on that one.
it's so good. But yeah, so it's just
I mean, in 1990.
Here we go.
There we go.
Beautiful, but they're
Lovely
just so
ladies.
soft and like, you would never think of them as Kraftwerk inspired.
No, well, I mean, but interestingly
but I
enough,
love
I mean,
that.
1990 was that time period, that really interesting window, like the New Jack Swing era, where hip hop and house shared the same dance floor. And a lot of the hip hop artists.
Tell me more.
Queen Latifah, Moni
Yeah.
Love, all those guys, Dougie Fresh, they were making fast tempo, Big Daddy Kane, they were all making fast tempo rap records, up in like 115, 120. And so you smart DJs were playing hip hop and, Latin freestyle and New Jack Swing and all this stuff together. So that was a great time period of transition.
Right.
So it was great to have that song on there.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
it was great.
big surprise. And then, Planet Rock, we played. And then obviously, Def Punk. That's just sort of like, we have to play them. And I try to play something old and not as known. But again, we can tell just their influence. It's gonna come, it's gonna drop. Again, so here we go. This idea that music speaks for you and you don't want to be a pop star. It's, it's not about us. We don't want to be seen. Leave us alone. This is the music.
Behind the mask, yeah.
Exactly. Full circle back to France.
That's hot, yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about jazz?
Yeah, I was thinking about,
Let's,
yeah, weave it in, yeah.
before we like really break loose.
Coming up soon, live sets by DJ Lola and
Yes.
myself. If you're just joining us, we are having a tribute to Kraftwerk. We're talking about their influences and their legacy and some of the favorite songs that us as DJs have been playing that have a connection to Kraftwerk or a sort of inspiration. Going back, let's kind of hit the rewind button a little bit and go back in time to some of Kraftwerk's contemporaries. As they started to really, embrace electronics and were creating this computer or electronic music, there were also other really important jazz artists that were doing the same thing.
Yes.
Maybe not as like electronically punchy or driven, but certainly in the same conversation.
I would say that at that point in jazz music, and I don't want to speak on behalf of, musicians at the time, but there was this need to transform the language again. You know, just like, well, not only to like take jazz to the next level, but create a language in a language. And I feel that Kraftwerk and like synths and new instruments provided that outlet for jazz musicians to sort of like bring the soul of jazz, but use a different instrument to recreate, like to create a new language.
And some of the artists that I want to definitely mention, and you can see the sort of images
Herbie
being
Hancock.
shot. Herbie Hancock,
Miles Davis.
Ramsey Lewis. I mean, the list, Weather Report. I mean, it goes on and on how electronics were embraced. George Duke. Those are some of the people that I grew up listening to that I was able to make these sort of musical connections with. And also visually, like their album covers were really
So good.
freaky and spacey. And like they took the sort of ideas of futurism out there well before house and techno, you know. So these are, and then also some of
George Duke here.
Tangerine Dream, a
Yeah.
very important Love on a Train that
Yeah.
was from Risky Business. If you guys remember that, this is a very famous song, melodic, deep. So, I kind of wanted to just definitely mention that and play.
Yeah, can we play a few?
And this might be one that some of you guys might not be as familiar with, but I wanted to play Paul Hardcastle, who did Rainforest, and he was an electronic composer, but he's pushing jazz fusion and pushing sort of these, he's not quite dance, but it could be, depending on how you heard it or how it's played. And where did this stuff get played? Was it on the radio? I mean, how would you hear some of these songs? How did you hear them?
I was just a jazz nuthead.
Was it on the radio or where was it?
So my stepdad, he was a musician. He had so many cassettes and vinyls, and I lived with them with my stepdad and my mom in the middle of nowhere in the Netherlands, and he had just like a lot of jazz, and I was just like, yo, what is this? So it was through him basically that I discovered everything from classic jazz to like
Paul Hardcastle here, if you can get a visual on that. Yeah.
to like the psychedelic Miles Davis albums, the Herbie Hancock, that is like, okay, this is jazz, but this is also not jazz. Like,
Right.
for me.
And so what DJs are doing now with edits and the technology that's been made more available with Ableton and some of these other programs, and just the sort of savvy of record collecting is finding these rare electronic albums or finding these rare jazz albums
Yeah.
that have breaks and small bits and creating a whole new set of tools, and the bragging rights are, I have this and you don't, or where is that, and that's what I really love about a lot of this stuff. This one is Sound Chaser.
What genre is this? I mean, that's the beauty of it. Maybe that's the beauty of it, right? It's just music.
It's just music. Let's see. I'll do one more. I think I'll come forward in time a bit. Another one of my favorite German producers is Heinrich Schwartz. Heinrich Schwartz is like the Theo Parrish of Germany. I mean, he's
Who?
Heinrich Schwartz.
Oh, Henry Schwartz.
Heinrich Schwartz. I don't know how do you pronounce it. Heinrich Schwartz. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. He's also he's great mixing electronic and classical.
He is. So this one, John the Revelator, is one.
Oh yeah.
Really great track. It's all in there. You hear it, you feel it,
We're about to get there. Boom, boom. So good.
and you know, we didn't even get into like Depeche Mode and like those groups. You know, that
Oh, I mean,
that's
we need like
you know,
another hour.
That's another hour. We're gonna get
Beck,
into our set pretty soon.
Beck, Depeche Mode. You know, JC, Missy Elliott,
Oh my God, yeah.
Dr. Dre. And we're gonna get into like we're gonna get into house and a little
we're gonna
bit and like we're gonna get dancing.
Yeah, she's gonna grace the set, the decks. So Heinrich Schwartz, John the Revelator, you can feel the tension, the tightness of the groove. And I'll play one more, another one of my favorites, in the same sort of spirit. Let's see. You know this one?
Yes,
Little Richie Houghton.
classic.
Classic D9 Transitions, which was a really great album. I mean, it's super clean, it's super beautiful. And talking about like looping those parts that could just last forever. I mean, he was just a master at just really crafting something with layers so well that you could just sit and listen to it. And
If you consider that, especially nowadays, our attention span is 0.000 seconds, the fact that you can create this loop, this repetitive loop, and keep the listener engaged is outstanding. And that's the magic of like electronic music production, is like keep the listener engaged on the dance floor while you add and subtract just tiny bits of information.
should we talk about some of the darker side of this stuff before you drop your set?
Okay.
Okay. Because I feel like it's important to like club culture and just sort of like
heck yes. Let's go there.
She and I talk about this all the time, and you know, it's just like I'm gonna drop this level down, but
Yeah, let's do it.
I think you know, and I'm sure if you are engaged in your community's dance music scene in some way, as a DJ or a club owner or a producer or a promoter or a bartender
or a party goer,
whatever your moment is, I'm sure that in this moment, and hopefully even before this moment that we're living in, you've been thinking about your livelihood, or how is club culture going to move forward in this COVID era, but then also in this era of like, you know, Black Lives Matter, not to just name it as Black Lives Matter, but just like really putting the microscope onto diversity and the issues involved in club culture.
100%.
You know, and you being a woman, me being a black male, have had our challenges navigating this world of exclusivity.
Right.
You know, what are some of the things that you are thinking about as we move forward with this?
I mean, yeah, I feel that as a woman, this, like, you get into the club and you already, the fact that you're a woman playing is already a statement. It's a political statement, it's a social statement, because it has become a cis male, you know, white male world. And if we go back, we've just like shown how, you know, electronic music in the US, it is black music, and we need to be, as artists, like responsible and keep the conversation going, hold clubs accountable, hold ourselves accountable. How many people are, you know, being represented here? Is this representative of the culture that brought this music together, right? Can we create a space like it was originally like made to, for people to be freaks of fucking nature and do what they want and be themselves and celebrate their blackness, celebrate their queerness, celebrate their trans, you know, like fluidity, without them being looked at or frowned upon or rejected. So we're in a moment in club culture where we really need to look at ourselves in the mirror, at like the spaces that we create and who we're letting in and who we're not letting in, right? So we need to have more black and trans and female folks up above, curating, organizing parties, signing labels, you know. We need to push for those people and put them in the right places. Not only booking the white women or the women just for the sake of having diversity, quote unquote. Right.
And we were saying this too on the way over here, just like the power of like the black dollar and the dollar of people of color. You know, when you are only booking these sort of top DJs that you heard about, you know, you're becoming a gatekeeper. I mean, I know that there's money involved and, you know, we all need to make money, but you're also like, don't be afraid of like the culture that goes along with other groups. You know, like when your top 20 list of DJs is like white men from Scandinavian countries or European countries, you are doing a disservice to the originators of the music. You're doing a disservice to what diversity looks like. Women are at the bottom. You know, black DJs are at the bottom or somewhere in the middle. You know, Latino and all these other music forms sort of get scattered throughout. And I believe it just sends a bad message and it's just bad for business.
100%.
And I think that you see how easily it could be taken away.
Right.
You know, there's no clubs going on right now. Where are all these people now? You know?
Right. 100%.
So let's really rethink. You know, my suggestion, my hope, my wish is that we really start to rethink how we're working with people, who's behind, you know, signing the checks, who's behind the curating, who's behind the festival organization, who's behind, you know, booking at clubs, you know, and take some chances.
Right.
You know, and open the doors a little bit more, you know, and stop being greedy, you know, like this, it's going to kill you.
Right.
So that can open up the doors a lot, you know.
100%. And I want just to add, part of like club culture, the birth of it was, again, to allow for a safe space for a lot of folks, women, black women, trans, black folks, and we need to get to that space again. People need to feel safe in those spaces. So we need to hold people accountable, because unless a trans black woman doesn't feel safe on the dance floor, no one should feel safe on the dance floor. So that is something that I want to push for clubs, to make sure that people are not fucking attacked, you know? Yeah. So yes, for sure, this is a moment for artists, for everyone involved in the music scene to take a look at themselves.
Yeah, I think this is a time to really like reinvent the purpose of music. What is your organization doing to play music and continue to engage in the audience? Yeah, you may not be able to book every DJ, but can you say something positive on your website? Can you feature and profile mixes by artists who, you know, haven't come through yet? Can you create some like mentorship programs?
Right.
That's the other thing too. Like I feel like some of these big DJs aren't mentoring younger people. Like it's like get what I can get, and you know, you try and get it on your own. But like, how are we mentoring and creating this diversity within the music? I don't want to go to a club all night and just hear the same, you know, 4/4 banging thing all night. You know, that's taking me nowhere.
Right.
You know, and only people out on the floor are just people high on drugs. Maybe that's for you, but I think that there's other ways that we can party too.
And I mean, the way that young producers are gonna see themselves is literally by seeing themselves on the dance floor. If I never see a woman playing, then I would never see myself as a DJ or a producer. That's why it was so important for me to find black and female producers of electronic music, because that gave me an idea if they can do it, I can do it too.
So in another minute, we're going to get into DJ Lola's set, but I think I want to just sort of close this sort of discussion with, you know, first of all, thank you. I hope you got something out of the discussion about Kraftwerk, and, you know, you celebrate them. And if you don't know much about Kraftwerk, get into their legacy and make those connections yourself, you know.
Yes.
And also, did you want to say anything about, like, you as a producer and what you're working on?
Oh, yeah, we have that too.
We haven't even talked about that, but, you know,
I mean, just to, like, very quickly, I have been producing for about 2 years, and it's only now that music's starting to sound decent, because it's been a struggle, and for me again, because I couldn't find that many role models that looked like me, that would tell me like, yo, it's doable. If I can do it, you can do it. That was definitely a struggle for me to find role models that could like show me the way. I eventually found a few beautiful people in my surroundings, and obviously like the conversations that we have about music, and really good friends that have like guided me. But also the computer was definitely something daunting to me, and something that it was not inspiring. So that the moment that you had listening to Kraftwerk really, when you were really young and just being like really nerdy, I didn't have that. If you understand that like when sound design became a study and people were studying sound engineering and sound design, women were not allowed in. It was not a study, it was not a major for women to be in. So women were told that this field was not for them. So it's not crazy that for someone like me, the computer feels daunting and feels overwhelming and feels boring, and it's a machine that I cannot feel inspired by. So it took me a lot of effort for me to understand the computer as an instrument, and as an instrument that would speak to me, and as an instrument that I would feel inspired by. So it's a struggle, and it's a struggle for like a lot of women. DJing is, it's so away from like what you're told that you can touch and that you can do, right? So we need to think about those things, and we need to talk to, Black trans women about like, hey, you can do this. Let me show you how. This is doable. So yeah, I'm on this path right now, and
you're working on tracks. And where can we hear your music now online?
I just released a track on Hog Records. So if you go to Bandcamp, Hog Records, Lola Via, there's a remix right there. It's a very aggressive, remix. A lot of punchy drums, but then again, we're living in aggressive times, and that it definitely speaks to how I'm feeling and what's going on in my mind and my heart. So again, Hot Records, Lola Villa, or SoundCloud, Lola Villa Musica on SoundCloud.
Okay, we'll have to check that out. So you have to check that out.
How about you?
For me,
Yeah.
I'm still new to the production game. I've been working in Ableton for the past, I guess, 7 months now, like since November. I mean, I've been collecting and kind of doing some edits here and there, but like really to just like dive in without distraction, it's been about the last 7 months. So a couple tracks that I've been producing that will be circulating soon. You'll be hearing about them. Or maybe I've sent them to you and you just haven't listened, or maybe you have, I don't know. So I'm optimistic, and I'm happy to channel my ideas into creating music now. And then I've got some mixes on Mixcloud. Mixcloud.com/Adrian Loving is where you can hear my ideas and my musical rantings for the past, I don't know, several years. But yeah, I think we're going to collaborate. We're going to do some stuff together,
Yes,
right?
for sure.
Yeah.
This is just
this
the start.
is the beginning. Yeah.
This is the beginning.
Yeah.
All right. So
I think we'll end the lecture portion of the talk
yeah,
portion
let's
now.
just end the talking, and let's
And
move on
we'll
to
get to the
some
mix.
music.
So stick with us. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, we'll take a little close
A little
down
break.
and we'll be back in 5.
All right, we'll be back. Thank you so much. Thank you.